Washington Pod presents Earl Nightingale.
I was reading that great little book, The Ever-Present Past, by the late Edith Hamilton, certainly one of the greatest ladies who ever lived, and I came across something I thought you'd like. When I read educational articles, she wrote, it often seems to me that the purely personal side of education is not emphasized enough. The fact that it's so much more agreeable and interesting to be an educated person than not. The sheer pleasure of being educated does not seem to be stressed anymore. Once long ago, I was talking with Professor Basil L. Gildersleeve of Johns Hopkins University, the greatest Greek scholar our country has produced. He was an old man, and he'd been honored everywhere, in Europe as well as in America. He was just back from a celebration held for him in Oxford, and I asked him what compliment received in his long life had pleased him most. The question amused him, and he laughed over it, and he thought too, and finally he said, "Well, I believe it was when one of my students said, 'Professor, you have so much fun with your own mind.'" Robert Louis Stevenson said that a man ought to be able to spend 2 or 3 hours waiting for a train at a little country station when he was all alone and had nothing to read, and not be bored for a moment. What is the education which can do this? What is the furniture which makes the only place belonging absolutely to each one of us, the world within, a place where we like to go? I wish I could answer that question. I wish I could produce a perfect decorator's design warranted to make any interior lovely and interesting and stimulating, but even if I could, sooner or later we would certainly try different designs. My point is only that while we must and should change the furniture, we ought to throw away old furniture very cautiously. It may turn out to be irreplaceable. The world within, a place where we like to go. How about that? That's the aim of education, and it should be the aim of every person, to make his world within a place where he likes to go. And what about Robert Louis Stevenson's comment that a person ought to be able to spend 2 or 3 hours waiting for a train at a little country station when he's all alone and had nothing to read, and not be bored for a moment? Stand some evening in a big city at 5 o'clock and watch the faces of the scrambling, frenetic crowd, people hurrying home, trying to shorten the time they're left to their own devices and their own thoughts. But they are not our problem. We are our problem. Our own inner worlds are our problems. How's yours? Edith Hamilton was right. The purely personal side of a good education, an education available to every one of us, is not emphasized enough. Not enough of us understand the fact that it's so much more agreeable and interesting to be an educated person than not. We should all be concerned every day with the furnishings we're selecting for our inner worlds. A poet hundreds of years before Plato said, "Before the gates of excellence, the high gods have placed sweat. Long is the road thereto, and steep and rough at the first, but when the height is won, then there is ease."